On the rope this week is Ben Petigrew. You may have caught him on Channel 9's TV program This Time Next Year, where he not only vowed to become the first legally blind skier to ski the Southern 80, he smashed it out of the park and then backed it up the next year as well. He's a seriously impressive bloke with a seriously impressive story. After losing 98% of his vision virtually overnight as a teenager, he's gone on to become a successful businessman, a motivational speaker. He's trekked Kokoda twice, he does Spartan races, he rides motorbikes, and he's a huge part of the Ski for Life charity. Listening to this one, it's a bloody good one.
You're listening to Australia's #1 ski racing podcast, On the Road, sponsored by Coldie's Tow Bars and Bull Bars, featuring Chelsea Stevens, Jack Coldrake, Mick Kelly, Dave Bishop, Tim Horbury, and Wade Bennett. My name's Mick Lumpton. Now let's head to the 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Hey everyone, Ben Petigrew here, pumped to be on the rope with Mick Kelly, awesome podcast to talk all things losing 98% of my eyesight, ski racing and a couple of other exciting adventures. Tune in.
Welcome along to another episode of On the Road podcast. My name is Lumpy, and this podcast is a very interesting one, and I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it. But before we go to Mick and Ben, aka the Bank Robber and the Bat, we have another tea to give away thanks to our great sponsors in Savage Force Merchandise, so make sure you hang around for Bisho's question at the end of the podcast. We also have a sponsor in the spotlight, so it's all happening this episode. I hope you enjoy. Have a listen.
Losing 98% of your eyesight virtually overnight when you're 16 is the type of thing that can break a person. But our next guest not only came to terms with it, but has used it as a platform to transform the life of not only himself, but thousands of others too. Harnessing the power of mindset, not eyesight, he's achieved more in his life than most. A successful business as a motivational speaker, completing the grueling Kokoda track not once but twice. He rides motorbikes, he completes Spartan races, and has become the only legally blind person to compete in the Southern 80 ski race. He's an amazing man I'm lucky enough to call a good mate. His name's Ben Petigrew. I'll just call him the Bat. Bat, thanks for being on the road, mate.
Thanks, Robber. Good to be here, mate.
Mate, it's good to catch up, buddy. It's few and far between at the moment, isn't it?
It sure is. It's a funny old world that we're living in 2020, but if we've got to do it virtually over Zoom in order to catch up, have a beer and have a chat, then let's do it.
Absolutely. Speaking of, I remember talking to you early 2020 and let's be fair, life wasn't going much better for you back then either, mate. Like you were stuck right in the guts of a lot of the southern fires. How did that all play out for you?
It was, yeah, like you say, it has been a crazy year from the get-go for us. And New Year's Eve 2019, we were holidaying down at Mallacoota on the sort of East Gippsland, Victoria, where we go each year, do a lot of skiing, do a lot of race training down there. And we'd actually, my now wife, Amy, and I had only been down there for one day, and all of a sudden the warnings came in about the fires, and we spent a good 5 hours out on the middle of the lake down there in our boat in pitch blackness during the middle of the day as the fire swept through the town. Then we had to wait 6 days there without power until the army was able to come in and the visibility was good enough to get a helicopter in and fly us out, because most people got boated out of there by the Navy, but due to not being able to see, like you said in the beginning, the emergency services deemed me a bit at risk in terms of catching the boat and being on the Navy ship coming back to Melbourne. So we had to wait a few extra days and get flown and bussed back by Army helicopter, which was definitely an experience and a bit of a unique way to kick off 2020, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, like helicopter rides are always cool, but obviously they'd never met you, mate, if they thought you couldn't climb yourself onto a boat and get out of there.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, they obviously didn't know I was kind of familiar with boats and water and all that sort of thing. And being on a big ship, just cruising along, eating ice creams, if they thought I was at risk there, I'd hate to sit down and have a proper chat with them. But, I mean, it didn't worry me either. Got to sit around and chill out for a few more days and get a ride on an army helicopter, which you don't get every day. So I'll take that over a boat any day.
No, very cool, very cool. All right, like, I know it, luckily, but why don't we start sort of from the beginning and, share your entire story with everyone. Where'd you grow up? How'd you end up bloody being here talking to me on a Wednesday night?
All right, let's do that then. So I'll take you back to the beginning, like you said. Grew up very much as a typical kid, loved the outdoors, basketball, footy, cricket, you name it. I loved it. Water skiing, motorbike riding, anything outdoors, any chance that myself, my dad, my family could get to sort of leave where we grew up, which was just on the outskirts of Melbourne, and head north, whether it was to the bush, whether it was to the Murray, to the river, camping, fishing, skiing. That was what our priority was, and that's what we loved to do growing up, and very much had a pretty typical upbringing, and was pretty lucky to travel Australia a couple of times and see some incredible things, and then everything, like you said, changed at 16 years old. I was one of those kids that probably thought I was cooler than I actually was, and used to sit right up the back of the classroom, just like you would have too, Mick. And
I know what you're talking about. Front and centre for me, mate. I just wanted to.
Yeah, well, that's why you're a teacher now. You've just followed those footsteps.
Absolutely.
Now, so for me, I was at the back, and I remember one day really clearly in Year 10 science class, teacher was drawing a diagram of the human body on the whiteboard up the front, and something didn't seem quite right about it. I could see the diagram, see everything she was drawing, but it was just this tiny little bit blurry, a little bit hazy, sort of like the feeling you get when you look at a really bright light or the sun for a couple of seconds too long there. When you look like it takes a few seconds to readjust. Everything's that tiny little bit blurry, like a filter over your eyesight. You can still see everything, but it's just like that mini headache for a split second. Now, that's similar to what it was like, and I just had that gut instinct, that intuition that we all get, I suppose, as people from time to time, that something's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on exactly what it is. And then I turned to that person who, growing up, I always turned to when I needed some advice, needed some guidance, wasn't sure exactly what to do. So gave Dad a call, explained the situation to him, and he wasn't too stressed, typical Dad. And I was quite happy with that result. He told me not to worry about it. Problem was then he then rang my mum to fill her in on the situation, and she didn't exactly share the same view as Dad did. So,
classic mum, mate. Classic mum.
Classic mum, stressing out way too much all the time over everything. All of a sudden, Dad's rocking up under mum's strict instructions. He's had to leave work. He's flown to school. Announcement comes over to come to the office with his school bag. Dad's grabbing me, putting me in the car, and we're flying off to the Eye Hospital in Melbourne to go and get a checkup, as well as meet mum. So there we are. We spend the next 6 long hours getting test after test after test done, and eventually, after all these different tests, the doctor comes in and says, Ben, we've discovered what's going on. You've got an inflammation of your optic nerve, which is basically the cord between the back of your eye and your brain. So that's bigger than it should be. And the doctor then said, but this is a very, very common thing, very easy fix. What we're going to do is for the next month, we'll put you on a course of steroids. Now, Mick, at 16 years old, when you get told you're going on steroids, your mind doesn't sort of rest for a second. My imagination started running wild with all the possibilities that steroids were going to bring to my life.
Oh, you'd look good, buff, mate.
I would. That's what I think too, especially now when I can't see myself in the mirror. I do let my imagination run wild and tell myself things that probably aren't true. But at the time I was very excited, and the doctor soon shut that down as I was thinking about dominating every sports team and going back to school. The girls were going to love me. This was going to be the best day of my entire life. The doctor saw my eyes light up and reminded me pretty quickly that I obviously hadn't heard of medical steroids, and they'd do nearly the complete opposite.
It can't get both. I mean, it wasn't an option.
Well, I actually had a quick little argument with him and said, mate, I reckon my steroids sound heaps better than yours at the moment. But when he gave me his side effects of putting on weight and being tired and moody and angry all the time. But anyway, he unfortunately knew what he was talking about and I didn't. So took his advice. We were up to the top level of the INE hospital and had the steroid drip put in my arm and got sorted for the night. Mum and Dad, they said they'd be back first thing the next morning, and texted my family and friends, told them that I'd give them the update the next day. And I remember really clearly those TVs that hang on the little curtain rails in the hospitals at the end of your bed. I'll turn that off, put the remote down on the bedside table beside me, close my eyes, tried to get some sleep under the nurse's instruction. Next morning when I woke up, opened my eyes and I looked for the first thing that nearly all of us look for these days when we open our eyes, our phone. Looked to the bedside table beside me for it, but it was gone. I then looked towards the end of the bed, the curtain rail, where the TV was the night before, and it was gone. And I actually remember laying in bed thinking to myself, what's still here that I definitely know is still here? My hands, I could still feel them hanging on the ends of my arms, and laying in bed, I held one hand up in front of my face and I couldn't even see that. I could feel it, but couldn't see it. And that's when overnight I just lost 98% of my eyesight, sort of just like that. And it took 2 months, it took another 2 weeks after the doctors finding out for them to do a lot more tests and eventually deliver the news that it wasn't an inflammation of the optic nerve like they first thought. It was a rare genetic syndrome called Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. It was 1 in a million. It was incurable. And I got delivered the news that I'd be blind for life. There's no way it could be fixed. And that was at 16 years old.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like that's, like modern day people get the shits when, you turn on the TV and you don't get the reception you want. Like for it to completely change like that at 16, what were the processes you went through? What did you put in place from there? Or was it out of your control?
I think in hindsight's one of those wonderful things that a blind guy can now talk about. But
isn't it?
Look, yeah, exactly. Looking back now, I think straight away adrenaline probably filled my body. I was in complete and utter denial, and there was a lot of questioning. Why me? Why has this had to happen to me? There was no rhyme or reason to it. I hadn't done anything to cause it. It was just one of those freak things that life sometimes throws our way. So for 2 months, complete and utter denial, and my family and friends, they were all grieving, and it actually took a moment. I can laugh about it now looking back, but it was walking into school a couple of months later that I walked headfirst into a pole. Being a teacher yourself, Mick, you'd know how many, next time you go to school, just notice how many poles there are throughout the joint.
Oh, yeah.
Way too many. But it was actually pole number 1. I don't know what number I'm up to now.
The first one, yeah.
It'll be in the thousands now, the amount of poles that I've come in close contact with.
Well, I was going to say you, with old Cody, we were doing some ropes and you were there, one you chuka, and you almost added another one to your list, mate. She was very close, that one.
Yeah, so, that doesn't surprise me. I can't remember all of them, but I can remember that one. There's a lot of near misses, and there's a few scars from a little bit closer than near misses. But this pole number 1, was pretty significant because it was that first moment since losing my eyesight that it really sunk in that this was real. This wasn't something that I could be in denial about forever, and it wasn't something that I would just wake up one morning and everything would be better. It was just going to be like a nightmare. It was pretty clear from that moment on that wasn't going to be the case, and I had to sort of choose to take control of the things in life that I could control and not spend my time and energy worrying about the things that I couldn't control, accept what had happened and try to move forward and make the most of the opportunities the best I could.
Yeah, and it's like I can't even fathom it, and I'm sure none of the listeners can either, but like that point where you went from going, this is bullshit, to, all right, how do I move on? Like, it's such an incredible transformation for anyone, let alone someone in your spot. Like, it went on to obviously inform the rest of your life choices and stuff, yeah? Like,
Oh, 100%. But I'll, like, and you know me well enough now, I'll be the first person to put my hand up and say that it wasn't just a split-second decision at the bottom of that poll and say, look, from now on, no more bad days. There were ups and downs, and it was a roller coaster journey. It still is a roller coaster journey. There's always different challenges coming up that I haven't experienced before, or something new that I'm doing, and a new challenge presents itself because of not being able to see. There's still days where I wake up and go, shit, you know what, I wish that I could see today. It'd just be easier. And I think that's only natural. Definitely in the beginning, there were more bad days than good, and slowly and surely there were more good days than bad. And there are very few bad days, and I'd probably prefer and call them more now. So sort of down moments instead of whole days. But that's just natural, and that's life. And like you say, definitely accepting what had happened, and not only just accepting it, but embracing it, taking ownership of it, and going, you know what, I actually need to be proud of who I am. I don't want to be embarrassed by the fact that I can't see. It doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change what I can potentially achieve or can't. I don't want to let it dictate what I can and can't do. I need to be in control of that, and it may mean I have to do some things differently, but doesn't mean that things are impossible. And that sort of has been one of the mantras I've tried to instill in the day-to-day life and my day-to-day life moving forward from there.
yeah, and again, like the ability to turn that into a positive is mind-blowingly inspirational. And, you know, I mean, again, like I've become a bit blasé, like we're too good of mates now for me to be too in awe of you. I'll just continue to just give you shit and move on with our life like we do. But
I don't want you to be in awe of me either, mate. You know me, I'm pretty down to earth and pretty genuine.
Like,
I try to be anyway.
we have to go. Do you think maybe without this you wouldn't have reached your full potential? Like, did it open your eyes?
Pardon the pun.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward. Yeah, like, did it open your eyes to just how strong you were once you got your head around it?
It's a good question. It's a hard one to answer, because how do you know what life would have been like without it? There's still days where I wonder what I'd be doing if I hadn't have lost my eyesight. But there's so many things that would be different. Like it's, I think this year was 9 years in May since I lost my eyesight. So that's now over a third of my entire life I've had not being able to see, and you get used to that. And thinking back, I go, well, I may have been in a completely different career. I definitely, because I met my wife Amy through getting into professional speaking and motivational speaking. If I wouldn't have done that, if I hadn't have lost my eyesight, so I wouldn't be with her. I would have kept going to the Southern 80 and watching ski races around the country, but probably never would have gone any further than that. I would have just been hobby skiing over summer and social skiing like I always had. And
yeah, that's it. Like the what ifs are
the what ifs are endless, and I'm probably not the type of guy that wants to dwell on those too much.
absolutely.
Has it helped me achieve and reach my potential? I think potential is one of those things that I don't think we will ever reach if we keep pushing ourselves. I think what you can achieve is probably limitless in a way. Once you achieve one thing, there's always another door to push that little bit further if you're willing and want to.
Yeah, beautiful. And I don't want to turn this too much into an ad, and I know you don't either, mate, although I gave you the option. Like your limitless vision and your true vision concepts, like it's not necessarily about not having eyesight, is it? It's about, understanding yourself and your potential for growth and, using that outlook to take yourself places, isn't it?
100%. So, yeah, true vision and limitless vision, both two main topics that I speak about a lot to businesses around Australia, to individuals, to school groups, and both of them are very much things that
Yeah, well, absolutely. And depending how you live it, like we're victims of our upbringing, aren't we? Like it shapes us and leads us
100%.
in directions. And I know I, for one, I'm pretty grateful, because you'd probably never be hanging out with someone that looked like me if you could see me. So, you know.
Don't be like that, mate. I'll always be the first one to give you praise about your looks.
All right. So, hey, if you're listening to this and you're looking for someone to speak to your business, your school, whatever, get on to benpetigrew.com. It's well worth your time. Enter in voucher code MPC91, and that will give you absolutely nothing. But see how you go.
We might be able to set something up. I'm not making any promises, but
no, all good. All right. So, well, it's a ski racing podcast. So, like you've decided to ski the Southern 80. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, do we need to backtrack a little bit?
Yeah, probably. I mean, we've got a little bit carried away, but that's okay.
Yeah, so I think just to give all the listeners, like you say, a little bit of insight into my connection to water skiing to start with. Always loved social skiing, but I wouldn't say did it heaps. Just like a lot of families doing it over summer. And when I lost my eyesight, Dad was a really massive supporter of one and said, Ben, don't worry about losing your eyesight. And I was like, well, obviously there's concerns there, but in terms of some of the hobbies, some of the things that we love to do, both for me individually and as a family and sport and things like that, Dad pretty much said we will find a way around as many things as we possibly can. And he did a lot of research early on and found a helmet that people use a lot for coaching surfers, coaching wakeboarders, coaching water skiers, and it's a head zone helmet. Unfortunately, they don't make them anymore, so my original head zone helmet is just hanging on by the skin of its teeth. And that helmet has a UHF sort of two-way radio built into it, so the observer in the boat can give guidance, give instructions, or coach depending on the way they're using it. So that sort of got me back into water skiing, and first summer after losing my eyesight, we progressed slowly from the knee board to the skis just to build the confidence back up behind the boat. And one of the side effects that I don't actually talk about a lot when I first lost my eyesight, especially because it was so instant, was severe vertigo. And the vertigo actually sort of was triggered in most of the episodes behind the boat very early on. So first few times got on the knee board and I'd go for a couple of 100 metres and all of a sudden the boat and myself would be spinning around in opposite directions at 100 miles an hour. I'd let go and the guys in the boat would be coming back towards me saying, just swim towards our voice, and I'd just be saying to them, I have no idea where you are. I'm moving 100 miles an hour just spinning, and they were spinning around with the exact same pace. And they literally had to come up and grab onto me and take it over to dry land just so we could sort of regain a bit of balance and clarity, even with the 2% eyesight that I've got. That made it quite difficult and quite challenging and scary, and we didn't know if that was going to pass or if that was going to be something that we'd constantly battle with, and maybe that was going to put an end to the water sports prematurely. But luckily, the more we gave it a crack, I'd go 100 metres the first time, 300 or 400 metres the next, and slowly but surely build up to the point now where I don't experience a lot of vertigo anymore, which I'm definitely happy about. And I suppose that's just the body adjusting to the new conditions and new situation. And then a couple of years later, when I was 18, started year 12, we went water skiing up to Lake Eildon. Again, just social skiing. And I'd only started year 12 the week prior, first weekend. Went up there and went out to do a big left-hand turn, and ski slipped out from underneath me and I broke 4 bones in my ankle. The whole sort of inner ball of your ankle, that whole ball joint actually split off, flipped around under the skin, and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah,
but it wasn't good at all. But the probably most uncool part about it was at the hospital when the doctors were checking me out and the x-rays came back and they said, "Now, what were you doing?" I said, "Water skiing," and they looked at the sheet with my details on it. They said, "Hang on a minute, it says here that you can't see." I said, "Yeah, that's right. But you just said you were water skiing." And one of the doctors literally looked at me from the end of the bed and said, "Well, that's a stupid idea, don't you think? You probably deserve to be here if that's the case." And I got told after hearing that to never ever water ski again, and that was doctor's orders. But I'm probably not the sort of person you say that to. And 2 years later, we're skiing the Southern 80.
It's now time for Sponsors in the Spotlight with Tim Horbury, and he had a great chat with Hayden Everett.
Okay, Hayden, welcome to On the Rope. Really pleased to be able to talk to you today because you've got a history in ski racing, and I'm really keen to share that with our subscribers and then talk a little bit about your business. So how did you get into ski racing?
I got through ski racing through the family with Dad. Dad's always kind of had ski race boats early on. And then just eventuated from there with skiing. We grew up in Mansfield on Lake Eildon, so we were always skiing during the week and weekends. So that's pretty much how we got into it, and just kept going from there.
What was your preferred weapon? What was your preferred stick, as some of the guys refer to it?
Oh, listen, I think my longboard was the one to go with all the time. So that was my choice.
And what about with your social skiing? What was your trick? What was your thing you were sort of thought you were pretty cool at?
Didn't really do many tricks, just made sure I could stay up on the thing. So it was always out there just making, especially social skiing, just out there doing even turns and stuff like that. So no tricks from me.
Real purist, eh? On the bar, not wrapped up?
Nah, on the bar. I used to, I skied social for the social class for a few years as well. Couldn't go past the DC social. That was the preferred choice there. And
where was your first race?
First race was the Southern 80. That was in sub-juniors. This is the 20K course. Loved it from then on.
And who was your crew? Who was your partner?
I had another local skier from Mansfield, or Bonnie Doon, I should say, Dane Howes. And they used to own a boat called Hitman back in the day. So, it was me and him. Father's good mates, Brett Lewis, was observer, and obviously my father, Ken Everett, was the driver. So, had a ball.
Good times, eh? And so what is your favourite race? What's your favourite venue?
Oh, listen, you can't go past the Southern 80, mate. As they say, the biggest ski race in the world. I do enjoy all the river classics. Did Sydney Bridge a few times as well. That was fantastic. But listen, the main one was the Southern 80.
Another Mexican flatwater specialist.
That's right, mate. That's right.
That's awesome. And so, what's your best result? What's the thing that you hang your hat on and say, geez, I did a great job there. That's the one I talk about the most when I'm talking to people about how good I am at skiing.
Oh, listen, in the result, it'd have to be, I've won mock and placed in mock a few times, an 8 litre. Skied unlimited a couple of times, but not so much in the podiums. At the end of the day, the result for me was just to get across the finish line. And as long as everyone was safe, that was enough for me.
I've known you long enough to know that you're very passionate about it, and just competing was something that you really enjoyed. But you haven't been racing of late.
No.
What went on when you finally sort of thought, geez, this is pretty dangerous, this sport? And you had a bit of an accident, I think you're telling me?
Yeah, I did have an accident in Robinvale, and it ended up being an accident where I actually had fractures through my spine, and that's what it actually was. They couldn't find it for a long time, and prolapsed discs and all sorts of things. But after that, yeah, I just backed it down a little bit and concentrated on my work. Back then I was earth moving. Concentrated on the work and kind of went away from the sport a little bit. Still stayed in contact with a lot of people in the sport and always watched, the progression of the sport. Yeah, got out of it, out of skiing anyway, and became a spectator.
You talk about what you're doing with your business life now, or your life which has become your business life, and it's a really good for people to understand what you do. So tell people in a lot of people know that, but what do you do? Yeah. So I've got a graphics printing company. So we pretty much start from the very start with design concepts all the way through to your output, which is your print, and then the application. We've got a wide range of different things that we can work with and different applications for different jobs, but the main ones are vehicles. We do a lot of vehicles, and obviously we do a lot of boats now as well. Yeah, you're getting a bit of a reputation. Facebook is full of work that's being promoted of stuff that you've done. It looks pretty classy, and what you do is to how technically equipped you are to do it, and how professional you want to have this. Yeah, I think that too, growing up with ski racing. Listen, back in the early days, God's gift was the boat that kind of started, I guess, the evolution of ski racing, like in terms of, paint jobs and twin turbos and all this type of thing. But that kind of took me by awe back in the day as a kid. And, from then on, I think, with John Evans from Race Paint, he kept pushing the boundaries with more boats on from that, with, blown budget and stuff like that. So I've always kind of, as a young person, always had that interest. And luckily enough, I've been able to create my own style now, and not so much put it to paint, but put it to print, and do it that way. And how did you get into the business, Hayden? So when I moved to Adelaide, I was going to go back earth moving over here, and my partner Stephanie said, why don't we look at something you want to do instead of have to do. So we went down and ordered a roll and printer. From then on, we've just kept going and getting busier and busier. That's how it all started. So very lucky in that sense to be where we are. And so how long have you been running it? We started in 2012. We first started we started with the pretty heavily in the motocross scene, producing all the graphics and stuff like that. We still do them now. A lot of our concentration is more on the bigger vehicle side of things, with cars, boats, trucks. We have done some aircraft as well. But we always still, always go back to the roots and, kept the motocross side of things going as well. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's your favourite job? What's the job that you sort of look at and go, geez, that looks fantastic? Because really part of what you do is actually graphic design. That's a hard one. Listen, all boats are designed by me. So at the end of the day, it comes down to what the customer wants, how the customer wants to set out the job, customers' colours, everything like that. But I like them all. But I like maybe different
points on different boats. That, maybe one day I can put together in one boat and for myself.
Offend any of your customers, do you? Because they all think.
No. Listen, I've just done Sapphire and the new 23 Sapphire. That's one that seemed to have taken a lot of interest on social media. Public Enemies, the stock 6-litre boat, did a bit of a combo with them in their van. Bit more of a different kind of colour scheme with that one. It worked really well. Those ones, Mistress, that was it's not a wrap, more of a partial wrap, but it's still nice and clean and follows the colours of the boat. That works really well. Like I said, there's hundreds of them out there that you could say bits and pieces. But I like all of them. I wouldn't print them until I'm kind of happy with where they're at, and obviously the customer's happy with them as well.
Have you got a place, a webpage, Facebook, Instagram? What's your
the web page is under construction. It has been under construction now for quite some time due to obviously having enough time to sort it all out. But we have got all your social media pages. So we have a Facebook page, and it's Rapid Concepts /Rapid MX, and we have an Instagram page, which is at Rapid MX Graphics.
Yeah, and you're doing work across the borders, although that's difficult at the moment. So how would you people to get hold of you, and also for subscribers who might recommend you to somebody to do their work?
That's the easiest way to get hold of me would be just via the messaging on those social media pages, or feel free to obviously give me a phone call on 0426 199 038.
Hayden, it's been fantastic to have you on the rope in our Sponsors in the Spotlight. Like a lot of people around the sport, you've got a history with it. Shout out to people that thank yous, people have helped you along your journey.
I guess the inspiration with my type of job, Scotty from AIM, Johnny from Race Paint, all those guys I've kind of looked up to in the past, I'm just lucky enough now to be able to do what I love and for a sport that I love. So those two guys, I guess, are kind of heroes in my eyes with the design side of things. So couldn't go past them. And then obviously Stephanie, my partner. And that's pretty much it, mate.
But when it comes to ski racing, it was one of those things that I think for a lot of people you travel up to, especially the Southern 80 being one of the sort of marquee events on the ski racing calendar. You travel up to, attracts a lot of crowds, and you go and watch the race, and it's one of those spectacles that you see boats and skiers and teams come past at incredible speeds, and you think, that's amazing, that's incredible, that's awesome, but that's also pretty scary. I don't think I'd ever do that. But since losing my eyesight and I suppose adopting that mentality of nothing is impossible, yes, you might have to do things a little bit different, but you'll never know if you don't give it a crack and try and find out. And through some friends of friends and a couple of guys that Dad works with who you used to ski with, Stevie Berry, got in touch with him and got on to Dan and the guys at 99 PsycoClowns, and the rest is history. They were fantastic. In the first phone call I had with Dan, he'd been explained the situation before, and we all know what Dan's like when he hears the scenario of there's this young guy who can't really see much at all. He's essentially blind, and he wants to have a crack at ski racing. And I've had this first conversation with Dan over the phone. Never met him in my life before. And I reckon 1,000 times I've said to him on the phone, now, Dan, if it's something you don't feel comfortable with, just let me know. It doesn't worry me if this can't happen. But I really appreciate the opportunity. And his response every time was, yeah, no, it's cool. Cool, let's do it. Awesome. No worries. All right, let's do it. Let's race. So he was very casual but very confident, and very, very supportive in the goal and the dream.
Yeah, beautiful. That's not man. That's Steve Berry and Daniel McMahon. They're not too bad people to be hooked up with if you're looking to get into racing. So that was obviously, a shortcut into where you got yourself. But I know you and I know Daniel pretty well. Obviously, you didn't just turn up and do it, There would have been a process. There would have been things in place. Like, talk us through how it went from concept to realisation.
Well, first thing first was we had to actually approach Skiracing Australia and get approval to ski the race. As far as we could find and we could see, there hadn't actually, like you said, been someone who was blind skiing the Southern 80. So we didn't know if that was something from a safety perspective that was even going to be allowed. So we had to get the helmet scrutineed. There was a whole heap of negotiation and an application around the best way that was going to be to compete in the race and ski the race and do it as safely as possible. So essentially, what was going to replace my eyesight behind the boat? Was it going to be another skier, essentially a spotter? And once we'd done a few training runs, Dan pretty much said that to have a spotter out there with you, the spotter would be having to watch you, therefore couldn't be watching where they were going. That wasn't a safe option. Skiracing Australia initially thought that would be a good idea in case there was an accident or in case we had to stop for whatever reason, then someone was in the water straight away pretty much next to me to help me. But it was just going to be too dangerous for myself, too dangerous for the other skier. And that's when the helmet was the best option. And that was, I suppose, when once we got approval that the helmet was approved, both from a safety perspective in terms of being passed as a safety helmet, but also from a communication point of view, and that replacing my eyesight to an extent, and having Dan on the radio guiding me through every single corner. That's when training really ramped up, because we knew that was happening, and we had a good crack at it. First year round was in 2017, and that was the year that just prior to the race, sort of September through until December, the river was in extreme flood. A lot of logs, a lot of debris floating down the river, and because of that, the first time I actually went behind a race boat was 6 weeks before the race. At that stage, initially, we were keen to do the full 80-kilometre course on the Sunday, but it was pretty clear when we weren't able to get behind a race boat until that time. I'd been doing a lot of training behind our social boat, but just didn't have the speed to simulate what racing was going to be like. You don't get that ski race fitness unless you're doing some serious speed.
That's definitely not the same, but yep.
Yeah, so it was only 2 or 3 days before Christmas that we said, all right, let's get up there. There's enough clear water now to have a good crack, and did that with Steve just before Christmas, and just after Christmas then met up with the team, and at that point in time, you and Cody were skiing, and we all started training together over January and putting in a fair bit of time behind the boat. But the biggest thing for us, and for me personally, wasn't even time behind the boat fitness-wise. It was time behind the boat working out the trust and the communication between driver, observer and skier. That was just something that was new to all three of us, and something that we knew we had to perfect before race day.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I know, like, I've skied behind Jess and Dan, and essentially I've been putting my life in their hands before, and I don't think he could be in safer hands, to be honest. But was it a big call initially for you to go, yes, okay, I accept what you're telling me, Daniel, and go with it? Or were you pretty on from day dot that he was going to be giving you the exact info you needed?
It was definitely trial and error, and I think we all knew that. We all knew that it wasn't going to be perfect straight away. And even from Dan's perspective, he'll still say that initially what's very tricky for him is he's facing backwards. So his lefts and rights are opposite to mine.
Opposite, yeah.
But then the boat's going the same way as me. So there was a couple of times when you're driving along pretty quickly and he's trying to work out whether it's a left corner or a right corner, or if he's telling me to go left or right, because that's that can often be the opposite very, very quickly in terms of instructions. Pretty soon we had big L's and big R's printed in the back of the boat, which were my lesson, right? So he could have that reference point straight away when he was telling me which way we were turning or which way to go. That was his reference point. And there was definitely a couple of times early on in our first couple of runs where I'd simply let go, or they'd stop the boat and come back and go, "Now, did you hear when I said this?" And I'd go, "I thought you meant thought you meant go left," and he went, "No, this way or that way," whatever it was back then. But yeah, there was definitely times where we'd stop, clarify, and go, "All right, from now on, use this word instead of use sweeping left, hard left, and tell me when the corner's starting and the corner ends," and things like that, just so we were clear on it, because there was sometimes there where we'd do a short, sharp corner, or more of a sweeping corner, which goes for a lot longer, and I'd still be leaning into that turn, but we were starting to speed up already. So I'm still leaning, waiting for that turn to continue, because I hadn't yet that the corner had finished. He told me when the corner started. So they were just things that we had to perfect over time. And
I guess it's similar in a way to, like World Rally Championship stuff, where you can be the best navigator in the world and you can be the best driver in the world, but there's not necessarily that connection until you've worked together and, got your language down pat.
100%. And I think that's what made it so much more, it's fulfilling and rewarding regardless, but the team aspect and the trust aspect just made it that even more rewarding to cross that finish line, especially that first year, even though we only competed in the disability category on the Saturday in the 20K short course. Crossing that finish line, especially for us, first year round, first go with such a short window to actually train behind the race boat in race conditions due to the river conditions, was something that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I can still remember getting the word and stuff, and it's you just doing you, but I think it's also people recognizing maybe in themselves that there's more to it than what they initially thought, which is very cool. It's, to give people the opportunity to see that it's not just day to day, that there's other people out there doing their thing is very cool. So the first year you ran disabled. Yep. You came back the next year to run 60 or 70?
60.
60. Okay.
60 the first year. We had the option of both, and because we were going from disabled, which I suppose this was the funny thing about ski racing, and still is. You can ski in disabled class, and there's no speed restrictions.
No speed limit, yep.
As soon as we wanted to ski the full 80, all of a sudden there was no disabled class that skis the full 80. They only do the 20. So if you want to ski the full 80, which Ski Racing Australia were a little bit hesitant about to begin with, but they said, okay, well, we need to give you a speed restriction. And that was 70 mile an hour, but we opted for 60 just for first year doing it. We might as well sort of do it with something that we're confident in. And
absolutely.
That was a year where we were able to have a much better crack at training. We were behind the race boat from sort of September all the way through until February, doing some really long runs. Did a lot of Ks in that summer leading up to the 80, and as much as I would have wanted to do a lot more racing, just due to the nature of my work and having to travel a lot, it probably didn't allow me to do as many other races as I would have liked. But that was just the reality of it. So Southern 80 was again the next race on the calendar for me, and also I wanted to be loyal to the team that gave me the opportunity. I probably could have gone to other people and other teams and ski more races, but Dan and Jess had their own commitments as well and could only make it to certain races, and they had their own priorities and were still still had other guys skiing with them as well, so I couldn't just take up all of their time and resources. But yeah, 2018 was the first time then I transitioned from the disability class across to the able-bodied class, and out of the 25 or 28 boats that were in the field for the 60 mile an hour class, we came in 9th position, including having an off at about the 25k mark. It wasn't a big stack by any means. It was just having a real rough stretch of water and just clipping the edge of the wake and the rough stretch of water at the same time, and going to get pulled over the front. It was one of those split-second moments when you think to yourself, I can either hang on and this might recover or end really badly.
Yeah, or get worse. Yep, 100%.
Or I'm going to let go and get back up as quick as we can. So we might have lost a couple of minutes there, but still crossed the finish line. And yeah, 9th position. We were definitely pretty happy with that.
Well,
even though Dan,
yeah. What are you going to say?
Even though Dan thought I should have held on and recovered it, would have been fine.
Classic Dan. But like 60 mile an hour is one of the most competitive classes out there. So the top 10 regardless is bloody impressive.
Something I'm definitely very proud of. But like you said, I think it was one of those things that not only was it to prove to myself that sort of thing's possible, but also prove to other people that no matter what their situation or their goals are, that they're possible too.
Yeah, shit on. Now, the next year, I mean, let's talk about it. Like, you're not the first, and you certainly won't be the last person to blow me off. But, like, we had plans to run 70 the next year, and, like, it didn't happen. So am I still a chance for that run in the future, or what?
Well, if your body holds up, we're definitely a chance.
Well, easy, mate. I'm getting old. Calm down.
Nah, 100%. I mean, if anything comes out of this podcast, if you're going to commit to the listeners that you'll be skiing Bank Robber and Bat will be teaming up, then let's do it.
Mate, what could possibly go wrong? If that's not a team made in heaven, I don't know what it is.
If that's not famous last words, I don't know what are.
Hey, won't be the first bad decision I made, and it won't be the last. So there's no first.
100%. So yeah, 60 or 70 mile an hour, I'd be definitely very keen to get back behind the boat.
Very cool. Well, hey, let's hope we're racing next year, let alone putting that together. So that'd be a good start.
Yeah, if COVID-19 can piss off and leave us all alone in 2021, it'd be very nice for everyone, I think.
Definitely. Now, look, you're involved in a charity event that sees teams scan the length of the Murray through South Australia. Tell me a bit about Ski for Life.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, it's actually got a closer connection to ski racing than you probably think. It was in the first year that I skied the Southern 80 in the disability class. The Channel 9 program this time next year did a feature story on that, on me skiing in that and becoming the first legally blind skier to do so, and that being my goal and chasing that. Through that, some guys in South Australia who are heavily involved in the organising of Ski for Life saw that and got in touch with me, and they explained the event. So basically, each March long weekend over that 3 days, teams come from all over Australia to ski relay style in a social skiing aspect, from one skier all the way through to 3 skiers behind the boat at any one time, 456 kilometres from Murray Bridge to Renmark to raise funds and awareness for mental health, wellbeing and suicide prevention. So when I first got approached to come on board and be the ambassador, I was very humbled and very privileged to be involved with such an event, but we've now been 3 years in a row now, and I'm still currently the Ski for Life ambassador. And this year just gone, we had just over, I think we had 22 teams and over 250 people attend the event and raised nearly $100,000 for suicide prevention and mental health programs. And Ski for Life is a registered charity. So the way that works is we actually have that money available for people right around Australia if you're doing an initiative, running a community event, an online event to promote mental health, to increase wellbeing, or whether it's around suicide prevention, whatever that is, you can actually jump on skiforlife.com.au and apply for a grant, and we can help support those events. So it's an absolutely amazing event, and I think if we're going to continue on signing each other up for things, if you're signing me up to get back behind the boat and on the road, then I'll see you next year at Ski for Life if it goes ahead.
Mate, 100%. I tried to get there last time and had a few work dramas get in the way, but I've been angling towards that next one. Super keen to get involved. Again, if you listen to this, mate, there's so many worse courses out there. It's an amazing course. Basically, you just get to ski for 3 days. I mean, so there's worse ways to spend your time. So if you think you can put a team together, get on board that too, because all my reports are it's a bloody good time. But
yeah, it's an amazing event. One you definitely wouldn't regret coming across to, and I think it's a good one too because the whole family can get involved. It's a team event, and whether you ski 1 kilometre or you ski the full 456 or anywhere in between, it's sort of bigger than that, and it's a heap of fun and it's for a great cause. So yeah, definitely encourage all the listeners to look it up and check it out, and would love to see some of the ski racing family come across for it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Like we touched briefly on safety and a few other things through there, and I just said hello earlier to your lovely wife, Amy. How's she with all the stupid things you do? Is she okay with it? Is she on your case about it? I mean, you know,
all the stupid things I do.
Well,
I haven't done anything stupid.
Did you not? Have I not seen a photo of you on a quad bike or riding a motorbike or tracking Kokoda or?
Yeah, okay,
You know,
okay.
I could go on if you want.
Okay, maybe I'll just eliminate some of these things from my memory, or I don't class them as stupid. One of the two. No, she's incredible. She's very, very supportive of everything I do, and half the time she comes up with the ideas as well, and is always thinking of something for me to do next. And sometimes I've got to sort of rein her back in. It was only last year where for my birthday she gives me this voucher, and I go, well, that's great, I can't read the voucher. Yeah, that's okay. I've made it into really, really, really big letters that you can feel and maybe make out. So one letter at a time, I've spelt out, you are going skydiving. But by the time I got through all the letters, I just put the word together, skydiving, and I've looked at her and I've gone, we're going skydiving? And she's just looked at me and gone, no, you are going skydiving. We are not, you are. So,
Beautiful.
I mean, when your fiance is buying you skydiving for your birthday and throwing you out of an aeroplane, she's definitely supportive and is all for some of my adventurous habits and love for adrenaline, love for trying new things and pushing the limits.
Yeah, well, so maybe I had it all wrong. I thought she was the smart one, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, we can debate that another day.
Certainly not on this podcast, that's for sure. It's not ski racing related, but it's still pretty bloody awesome. I just want, if you can to, do you just want to have a chat about your Kokoda treks? Because you've done 2 of them, which one in itself is pretty bloody epic, but two's next level. How did you end up there? Why did you think it was a good idea? And, you know, what was it like?
Okay, so Kokoda was one of those things that as a young kid, I always had a sort of patriotism and a love for Australian culture, Australian history, and therefore the Anzacs and the Anzac spirit. And Kokoda had always been on my list. When I lost my eyesight, I thought, might as well wipe that off the list. And again, the link to ski racing comes back because we were on a speaking tour up in Alice Springs, and I'd done a couple of gigs up there, and Amy and I actually tacked on a few days where we travelled out through some of the range country to the east and west of Alice Springs, and we were doing some small little hikes, and Kokoda had just been an idea in the back of our heads that we thought we should look at doing that. We should look at going across there. So this was the October before the first Southern 80 that I did. And as we're climbing up this range, it was really rocky. The rocks were dry and slippery. It was tough. Amy had to guide me. We were the only two people there. I slipped over a few times, and we got about 3/4 of the way to the top. And I slipped over again, and I said to Amy, I said, "Don't ever mention Kokoda to me ever again. I'm not doing it. And it's a shit idea. I can't see. It's impossible. It's ridiculous. Can't even make it on a 3K hike, let alone a 100-kilometre hike through the Papua New Guinean jungle." The next time I thought about Kokoda was after I crossed the finish line, because I think I had the Southern 80. I know I had the Southern 80 on my mind as we were climbing that range out west of Alice Springs as well, and it was probably just that little bit too much to think about, a little bit too overwhelming, and I probably had to concentrate on one thing to begin with. And once I crossed that finish line, I sort of reproved to myself that things were possible and things could be made to happen, and there were ways around things that seemed impossible. So it was crossing that finish line for the first time that reignited that dream of doing Kokoda. And in September that year, that's when we took on the Kokoda track for the first time, and we raised over 50 grand for Seed Foundation Australia, which is a Indigenous charity that puts young Indigenous people through the Northern Territory and Queensland through tertiary education to work in the healthcare sector, where they're sort of very underrepresented, which is a really, really cool thing. And then when we did it, it was by far one of the toughest things I've ever done. Not so much physically. I knew it was going to be tough physically, and don't get me wrong, it was. But mentally was the thing that I hadn't accounted for, because constantly I had to be described every single step, 7 days in a row, up to 14 hours a day. Yeah. So, like, literally the instructions from the people in my group, because they'd constantly rotate, because it was tiring for them as well, having to not only walk the track themselves, but translate it into words for me to picture and understand. And then I had one of the local Papua New Guinean porters behind me, just sort of balancing and holding my pack if need be, when there was some slippery terrain or some hairy terrain or bamboo bridges over rushing creeks and rivers. That's when they came into their own. But literally the instructions and the guidance was down to the detail of, Ben, your next step is with your left foot, 45 degrees to your left, 30 centimetres high, up over a tree root, down to a rock. Then I'd do that step, then it was next step. Now, yes, there was times where, all right, we've got 10 metres where it's sort of fairly flat, but on an incline up, so which means the grounds doesn't have much on it, fairly flat and slippery, and we've got 10 metres straight up, straight behind me, follow my footsteps, and then I'll just hone in and listen to the footsteps and follow them. They'd get a 10-metre break, and I'd get a 10-metre break, but then it might be straight back to literally step-by-step instructions. So it was, definitely by day 4 or 5, mentally, I was just cooked. My brain was fried, and people are telling me to go right and I'm going left, and telling me to step up and I'm not doing anything. And there was a couple of times there where I just had to take a break for 10 or 15 minutes and sort of think about nothing and then keep going. So that was by far the hardest part. But other than Amy, we had an absolutely amazing group. Don't get me wrong, but when I was over there was just a few people back at home that I thought I would love to do this with, and that's why we went and did it again. Collectively, we raised a fair bit of money for a whole range of different charities, Ski for Life being one of them, and there was about 15 that went over last year, and we were actually at the main battle site, Isarava, on our day 8 for Anzac Day dawn service. So we camped there Anzac Day Eve, and I had my dad with me, and I actually helicoptered in Dad's dad, my grandpa, because he lived over in Papua New Guinea for a few years while he was younger, always had Kokoda on his bucket list, has read every single book about it, always wanted to do it, but at that time was 83 and passed it and wasn't able to do it physically. So we had 3 generations there for the Anzac Day dawn service, which was really, really special.
Mate, that's incredible.
Whether I do it again, I don't know. The trip we did last year, I had a severe side effect to the malaria medication that I was on, and something that wasn't really common, but from day 3 through until day 9 on the track, I was getting on average sort of between 2 and 3 hours sleep, and I was hardly able to eat at all. It was quite a challenge. And then sort of had to jump on the plane. Wasn't able to celebrate with everyone in Papua New Guinea just because I was cooking bed, straight on the plane, straight to the hospital, and on a drip for 24 hours in Melbourne while they did tests. And probably another couple of weeks to recover from symptoms and get off the malaria medication and get onto something better for me. So that was challenging, and at the time I was thinking to myself, I would never ever go back to that joint. Done it twice, don't need to go back there again. But I think one day if I had
last words, mate.
That's it, exactly right. You never know. So I'm just going to leave it out there and go. Hopefully one day I'll be back, but we'll wait and see. It's a very special place, and if anyone does ever get the chance to go, definitely take it with both hands. It's by far one of the best things I've ever done.
It's incredible. Like, some of your experiences are just mind-boggling as is, let alone the fact that you're doing it with 2% sight, mate. It's bloody impressive. All right, well, I've probably taken up enough of your time for serious stuff. I don't even know where you'd begin, but this is your chance, mate. Like, anyone you want to thank, anything you want to say, big something up. Do what you got to do, buddy. This is your opportunity.
Do what I got to do. Well, I think from a ski racing perspective, I'd just like to put it out there to thank the whole ski racing community. One, to being so open-minded and welcoming to someone who is a little bit different coming in and having a goal that I haven't been in ski racing all my life, and to be able to sort of be welcomed with open arms was pretty incredible. And then more specifically to Dan and Jess from 99 PsycoClowns to take me in, from yourself, from Cody, from Steve Berry, Mick Pay, all those guys that have, all you guys that have, I suppose, taught me the ropes and given me feedback on technique and built up my confidence, and we've worked through different challenges and safety techniques and replacing those eyes of mine that don't work too well with different things that has made ski racing possible. I think has definitely big thanks to everyone involved, and also the organisers that have allowed me to ski. And by the sounds of this podcast, have to strap on the ski a couple more times and
get back there again, mate. Yeah,
get back on the water.
I got to say, I was pretty relieved there, but I thought you were going to bring up the time I almost run over you with the jet ski. But I mean,
you just have.
Well, you didn't see it, to be fair. So I mean,
I knew
it didn't happen. Yeah, it made for some really good TV footage. That helps.
Yeah, that's it. You can claim fame to some of that footage that's been used here, there, and everywhere.
Every time I saw it, I was like, "Ooh,
that was close."
Good times.
Yeah, I don't think you were Dan's favourite when we got back.
Hey, he was all right. You just got to know how to handle him, mate.
Yeah, okay. I'm still learning.
Yeah, I got no idea. So, no, seriously, mate, I really appreciated that. It was just good to catch up anyway. But I think it's amazing. You as a person are amazing. That's cool. But to be able to come back on and spend the time to share your story and, you know, just give people a bit of an insight is amazing, and I cannot thank you enough, mate.
Mate, thank you for having me, and to the listeners, thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it, and we are from bank robber and bat. We look forward to seeing you on the water.
Absolutely. Hopefully, see everyone at the 2021 Southern 80 when we're lining up together, mate.
All right, let's do it.
Cheers, mate.
What an absolutely amazing story. It is hard via Zoom, but Mick did a fantastic job, and thanks so much, Ben, for taking the time out to join us on the rope. Okay, it is time for our giveaway. It's over to you, Bisho.
God love you, Lumpy. Fantastic chat with Mick and Ben Pettingill. Well, this week's question to win an On The Rope t-shirt brought to you by the beautiful Savage Force is, what was the name of the boat that Ben did his first ski race behind? Flick us a private message on our Facebook page, and good luck.
Well, that's all we've got time for this podcast. My name is Lumpy. Until next time, you take care, and thanks for joining us on the rope, and I'll see you on the bank.
Audio production has been proudly produced by Mal's Media in association with our On The Rope podcast sponsors, Coley's Tow Bars and Bull Bars, Mark Savage Merchandise, ARS Automation and Robotic Services, TJH Coaching and Consulting, Rapid Concepts, Sven Productions, Bad Lad Australia, and Bisho Media.